Every single person on the planet has 24 hours in a day, yet some people build companies, master new skills, stay fit, and still have time left, while others barely cross off a single item on their list. The difference is not time itself, it is perception. Your brain does not experience time as a clock. It experiences it as a fluid, elastic thing. When you feel like you have all day, your brain spreads effort thin and wastes energy. When time feels compressed, your brain fires in high-density mode and output doubles. That is the problem most people ignore. You do not need better planners or apps. You need to fix the illusion in your head that makes hours feel infinite. The reality is, your brain's perception of time is distorted, and until you recalibrate it, you will always run out of hours while producing half of what you are capable of. That is why you need the compressed time protocol. Think of your brain like a projector. If the image is stretched too wide, everything looks blurry and slow. But when you compress it into a sharp focus, every detail becomes clear and fast. The same thing happens with time. Most people let their days stretch into a blur, where tasks dissolve into each other and urgency fades. High performers compress time into focused segments. That compression changes how the brain allocates energy, which turns 1 hour of effort into the equivalent of 2 or 3. This is not productivity theory, it is neuroscience. Your brain releases more noradrenaline and dopamine when it senses time scarcity. Those chemicals heighten focus, sharpen decision-making, and increase energy output. The protocol is about creating that scarcity effect on demand, without waiting for deadlines or crises to force it. Step 1 is building the time window. Your brain cannot handle an infinite horizon. When it believes there is plenty of time, it slips into what researchers call Parkinson's law. Work expands to fill the space available. To beat this, you must compress your working horizon into sharp windows. Instead of saying, "I will finish this report today," you tell yourself, "I will finish the draft in the next 60 minutes." This is not a motivational trick. It is a neuropsychological hack. The moment you set a short, immovable window, your brain switches into scarcity mode. It pulls energy from the default daydreaming networks and directs it into the task. You have likely felt this when you worked right before a deadline and suddenly became 10 times faster. The protocol installs that effect every day, on demand. Step 2 is called anchor compression. To make a window feel real, you must anchor it to a non-negotiable event. The brain does not respect self-imposed boundaries unless they are connected to something physical or external. For example, instead of deciding to finish by 3 p.m., tie it to a real anchor like a scheduled call at 3 or the moment you must leave to pick up your kids. If you do not have one, create it. Book a quick meeting, set a timer that triggers an unavoidable alarm, or promise to send something to a colleague. The anchor makes the time boundary solid in your brain, which forces compressed effort. Without anchors, windows collapse back into illusions. Step 3 is task slicing. When the brain sees a large block of work, it resists. It feels endless. But when you slice it into micro-tasks, each with a compressed time window, your brain experiences momentum. For example, instead of write a presentation, you slice into outline the slides in 20 minutes, then draft the introduction in 15 minutes, then design 3 visuals in 30 minutes. Each slice is small enough to compress, and together they stack into full completion. The hidden effect is that your brain receives multiple dopamine hits from finishing each slice, which reinforces the compressed state. This creates a rhythm where time feels shorter, but output grows faster. Step 4 is visual countdown. Neuroscience shows that humans perceive time more intensely when they see it pass visually. That is why a visible clock or countdown timer increases urgency. To apply this, you need a physical timer in sight, not hidden in an app tab. Place it directly in your visual field. As minutes tick down, your brain tracks loss. Loss aversion is one of the most powerful motivators in psychology. Watching time visibly disappear compresses effort even further. When you combine countdowns with anchored windows, you create a powerful trigger for high-density focus. Step 5 is closing rituals. When time feels endless, the brain never switches fully into action. You drift, thinking you can extend work into the evening. To compress time, you must train your brain to believe the workday has a hard end. That means you need a daily closing ritual, something you always do to signal the final boundary. It could be shutting down your laptop, making a final checklist, or leaving your workspace. Once repeated, this ritual conditions your brain to see the day as compressed. This prevents endless drift and forces you to load effort into the available window. Let's connect this to how high performers operate. Athletes, elite soldiers, and top entrepreneurs all use compressed time principles without calling them that. A fighter trains in rounds. 90 seconds of high-intensity effort, then rest. A soldier executes missions within narrow time frames, never in vague, open-ended windows. Entrepreneurs set hard deadlines tied to investor meetings or product launches. They force compression. The result is consistent high-density execution. You can build the same system into your daily life. Here is how you install the compressed time protocol immediately. Tomorrow morning, before starting work, choose your first task and slice it into a 1-hour block. Tie that block to a non-negotiable anchor. Place a timer in sight, count it down, and declare that at the buzzer, the block is done no matter what. Work inside that compressed window with full focus. Then repeat the cycle for the next task. By the end of the day, you will have stacked 4 to 6 compressed windows. That equals 8 to 12 hours of normal output compressed into half the time. The science proves this works. In studies of time perception, subjects consistently underestimated effort when time felt abundant and over-delivered when it felt scarce. Scarcity sharpens performance because the brain is designed for survival under deadlines. By artificially creating compressed windows, you hack that mechanism to your advantage. Over weeks, your brain adapts. You stop wasting hours. You stop drifting. You enter each day with the automatic expectation of density. At that point, you no longer live by the illusion of 24 hours. You live by the compressed clock, where each block of time counts twice. This protocol is not about stress. Stress drains energy. Compression channels it. The difference is intention. When you deliberately compress time, you direct urgency into execution. That is why the compressed time protocol does not burn you out. It energizes you. You finish the day not with the weight of unfinished tasks, but with the clarity of completion. This is the hidden advantage of people who seem superhuman with their output. They are not faster than you. They simply run on compressed time. In the second half, I will show you how to layer advanced compression triggers that train your brain to sustain this state automatically. This is where you multiply the effect, so compressed time becomes not just a tactic, but your permanent operating system. Now let's expand the compressed time protocol with advanced triggers that turn it into a permanent operating system instead of a temporary tactic. The first trigger is environmental compression. Your brain encodes space and time together, which means the environment you work in directly influences how fast time feels. If you work in a cluttered room with multiple visual signals, the brain dilutes focus and stretches time. If you work in a stripped-down, minimal environment, the brain accelerates perception. That is why clean workspaces and dedicated locations matter. To install this, designate a single environment for compressed windows and remove every unrelated object from sight. This conditions your brain to associate that space with density, not drift. The second trigger is sensory compression. Your perception of time is linked to the rhythm of sensory input. Slow, random inputs make time feel endless. Fast, rhythmic inputs compress it. That is why workouts with a countdown playlist feel shorter than slow, unstructured sessions. To exploit this, add rhythmic sensory anchors to your work. It could be music with a steady beat, a metronome app, or even subtle tapping. These signals tell your brain to stay in rhythm, which sharpens the compressed effect. Neuroscientists call this entrainment, and it can double your sense of urgency without adding stress. The third trigger is the finish line effect. Studies show that effort spikes as people approach a visible finish line. Marathon runners often sprint in the last kilometer because the end is in sight, even though their bodies were exhausted minutes before. You can replicate this with your work. As your timer ticks under 10 minutes, announce to yourself, "This is the finish." That verbal cue activates a burst of adrenaline, allowing you to push harder in the final stretch. By deliberately stacking finish line cues into every window, you create repeated surges of high-density effort. The fourth trigger is what I call the double horizon. Most people think only about today's deadline. High performers set two horizons: the compressed window and the broader mission. For example, you compress a 60-minute block to finish a report draft, while reminding yourself that this block contributes to a quarterly goal. The short horizon drives urgency. The long horizon drives meaning. When your brain sees both at once, it perceives the current task as critical rather than routine. This dual coding increases dopamine release, which sustains focus without fatigue. The fifth trigger is deliberate scarcity. Abundance creates waste. Scarcity creates precision. If you give yourself unlimited water, you spill it. If you have one glass, you sip carefully. Apply this to time. Cut your available working hours intentionally. Instead of telling yourself you have the whole day, cut it to 4 focused hours. Remove the illusion of abundance. Force scarcity. You will be shocked at how much work condenses into those hours. The brain responds with higher intensity because it believes resources are limited. This is why some of the most productive people in the world, like top executives or creative professionals, often limit their working hours to tight windows. It forces compressed output. Now, let's assemble the full compressed time protocol into a daily operating system. Step 1. Define your lead block. Slice it into a 60-minute compressed window and anchor it to a hard boundary. Step 2. Place a timer in sight to create a visual countdown. Step 3. Use task slicing to break large goals into small compressed segments. Step 4. Layer environmental and sensory compression by working in a minimal space with rhythmic cues. Step 5. Trigger the finish line effect in the final 10 minutes by verbally calling out the sprint. Step 6. Use the double horizon by reminding yourself how this block serves a larger mission. Step 7. Apply deliberate scarcity by cutting your available working hours to fewer, tighter blocks. When you run all of these together, you are not just managing time, you are rewriting your brain's perception of it. Here is what happens when you install this protocol. 1 hour of compressed time produces the same or greater output than 2 or 3 hours of normal work. Multiply that across a week, and you reclaim an extra 20 hours of peak performance. Over a year, that equals more than 1,000 hours, over 40 full days of additional output. But the real advantage is not the math, it is the shift in identity. You stop living like someone who is always behind, always rushing, always out of time. You start living as someone who bends time to their advantage, who finishes before others start, who compresses effort into powerful bursts and still has space left for recovery, growth, and strategy. That is the edge. Understand this clearly. Time is not your enemy. Your perception of time is. Most people lose years not because they lacked hours, but because they never learned to compress them. They lived by the illusion of abundance and stretched their lives into slow motion. The compressed time protocol destroys that illusion. It forces your brain into high-density mode, where every block counts double and every task gets finished before the clock runs out. If you want to dominate in your career, in your finances, in your communication, this is the protocol you need to install now. Stop pretending you will someday find more hours. You will not. But you can extract more from the hours you already have. That is the hidden weapon of top performers. They are not granted extra time, they simply compress it. And this is just one weapon in the arsenal. If you want to keep building your own playbook of elite mental codes, subscribe to Success Code. Every video is another protocol, another system, another unfair advantage. Time, energy, focus, influence. The rules are hidden, but once you install them, you stop playing catch-up and start playing to win. This is how you compress your hours, accelerate your results, and build a life that others cannot keep up with. Subscribe now, and let's keep installing the codes.